We've been in a real flood situation throughout the country this year, pretty well all across the country. Those cars end up somewhere. Some of them are salvaged, some of them are cleaned up and put back on the road. So that is one thing when you're looking for a car, and the person you're buying from may not even know it if he's bought it from an auction or somewhere. So they're not necessarily trying to pull the wool over your eyes, but you need to be very diligent in your check of the inspection of the vehicle. One of the best places to look to see if there is any flood damage, because the cars will be cleaned up, the engine will be cleaned, the body will be buffed, but they generally don't go inside, underneath the dash, inside the glove compartment. The cabin air filter is a good place to check to see if it's been in water. Even if it's clean, you can smell it. Maybe it's been changed, but if you'll reach your hand up underneath the dash and inside the dash, if you see any signs of stained on any of the hoses, any of the apparatus that controls the air conditioning, any signs that there's been, a lot of times there'll be grass dried out inside there. Check these places that don't normally get cleaned in a regular detail that the car's gone through.
And if they've replaced this, let's say, Rick, your nose can help you out.
Your nose can help you out. That's one of the best tools that you can use for this. Just opening the door, a lot of times you can smell the mold and mildew that's in the car, because that's very hard to keep out of the car. And you can check on the report for a Carfax report. Sometimes it'll say if it's a flood car, a lot of times it won't, if it just got cleaned up, went back on the market. So do yourself a favor and check the spots that aren't normally checked in a walk around, kick the tires type of inspection.
And if the seller didn't go to a mechanic or someplace to get it cleaned or dealt with after a flooding, then there's no record of it.
Exactly. And a lot of them, like I say, are being sold to dealers that they're not aware that it was in a flood. So do your homework and check for yourself.
All right, we're going to go under the hood now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
If you take the transmission fluid out, when you check the oil, make sure that it's clean, that it's been serviced. If it hadn't and it's dirty, then that's probably a good reason to walk away. But also you can smell it and smell if there's any burnt, especially on the transmission. If there's anything, a burnt smell, that means that it's been generating too much heat and it actually burns the oil. Of course, you want to check belts and hoses and things like that. The three most important things to look for is condition, history, and inspection. Condition, you can kind of tell yourself by walking around and seeing, because sometimes you open the hood or look around and there's a deal killer, like a panel that doesn't match, or body putty or something in places it shouldn't have been, like we said, the flood. Sometimes you can't, and that's where you want to do an inspection. You want to take it to your preferred mechanic and have him do and he knows what to check for and where to look for it. As far as the flood that we spoke about earlier, you can look at places underneath the hood also, in the cracks and crevices, that there's not any dried grass or anything inside there.
I don't have a trained eye to spot issues. So is there something that stands out to you?
Well, obviously, now this one has been worked on, but this is what an oil leak would look like underneath the car. You don't want to confuse that with condensation water coming out of your air conditioner.
Right.
So, sometimes you'll see that spot on the driveway, but if you touch it with your finger, if it doesn't go away, if it's not gone by that evening, that's probably oil. Exhaust systems is something your mechanic will know the main things to check, but of course exhaust systems you want to check. Most of them are stainless now, so they don't wear out quite as easily as they used to, but just general condition, especially sometimes we get cars from up north. Around in Missouri, we don't really have a rust problem with our cars. So if you raise one up and it's just rusted all over the bottom, it's probably come from up north or down by the ocean, one of the two. And generally that's something you might want to shy away from. You may never have any problem with it, but if you go to replace, especially a mechanic goes to replace a part, all the bolts will rust up and they break, and they can be a real nightmare to service those type of vehicles. So you want to kind of watch for rust also.
Do you have a mileage cutoff? If you're shopping for a pre-owned vehicle, if it's you, Rick, do you tend to steer away from anything over 100,000 miles?
Really, the mileage isn't as important as the condition and the maintenance. If they've got the maintenance records or you got the history on the car, a lot of times a high mileage, well-maintained car is a better deal than a newer low mileage car if it hadn't been maintained. So there's really not a definite on that, but and it's a matter of your pocketbook also.
My dad used to tell me about people rolling back odometers. Things have changed.
Yes.
Is that still a thing? And how would you catch it?
Well, unfortunately, it can be. I like to say that it's nowhere near as prevalent as it was in the past because they were mechanical odometers and you could physically roll them back. Most of them are digital now. you have to try a little bit harder, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But you can kind of protect yourself in certain ways, because if you're looking at a car and it says it has, say, 30,000 miles, but you look at the brake pedal, you look at the gas pedals, and they're worn out, the edges of the seats are worn out, good chance that's not the proper mileage unless the car has really been ran rough. So that's one of your indicators. You really can't tell on odometer, but you can double check yourself with a Carfax history. You can get an odometer history, because the cars have to be inspected, and every time they're inspected, you have to write the mileage down. So if at one time it had 100,000 miles, next time it only had 60, that's an indication. You also look at how many owners. If the car's had several owners previously, that may be an indication they're having problems with it. So it could keep you from buying a lemon.
A question I have, if you see on the car history, Rick, that it says totaled, is that a deal breaker right off the bat?
Well, yeah, because if a car gets totaled, the title will actually say salvage title, because once one is totaled, then it becomes a salvage title. The owner can buy it back and fix the car up. They're free to do that, but it will always say salvaged on the title. So that's probably one to walk away from. I will say, just because a car has been wrecked doesn't mean that it's a no-go. You know, we have a lot of very competent body shops right here in Springfield. If the repair is done properly, that's really not a problem. You know, if the whole car has been totaled, well, that can be a problem, because then you get into safety features. Sometimes your sensors that control your airbags have not been replaced, things like that. So, but if it's just had, you know, somebody's backed into it, or, you know, it's hit the side of the garage or something been fixed, that's not a deal killer necessarily.
And then finally, you got to test drive it.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the most important thing. That will tell a lot. You know, if you go to buy a car and an owner says, or you want to get it inspected, and he said he doesn't allow you, that's a deal killer right there. Sometimes the owner will go with you, and that's to be expected. But take it out, turn the radio off, roll the windows up, have everybody be quiet, and drive it. Listen for those little ticks, noises, squeaks. You know, go over a little bit of a rough road, see if there's any banging noises, anything like that. There again, it's not a deal killer, but it's something when you take it to be mechanically inspected that to tell them about and see what the noise is. Could be something very simple, could be something major.